on the line. You can't fold and you can't bend. Y'all be playing it safe and I be going for the win. Remember back when they was doubting on the kid. Now they tuned in cause my game too legit.
What is going on, Headliner Nation? Jake and the Doc, Dr. Ethan Turner, back today. And you know what? We had a good plan for today, Ethan. We're like, let's talk some late round lottery tickets. Let's talk some late round guys, some stashes you can take late. And then we have to start off with our customary moment of silence because we lost somebody this week, Ethan. Now, we made a reaction video here right away about Cam Akers, but I think it's time that even though it's only July, I think we need to start this episode off with a moment of silence.
This hurts, Jake. Mm-hmm. It's pretty rare that we have to have a moment of silence for someone this early in the season. But Cam Akers, dude. Shout out to Cam Akers. Best of recovery from the Headliners. We're sorry, man. Torn Achilles, done for the year. So we're hoping he comes back strong. This sucks. It's the worst part, but moment of silence for Cam Akers. I'm sure at some point next offseason we'll talk about you and your recovery and how you're doing. But for now, it's over, man. It's over. 2021 season. So moment of silence for Cam Akers. Let's do this.
All right, here we go. Perfect. Let's talk about some late round lottery tickets because just because Cam Akers is hurt doesn't mean the season is over. We got to start finding some guys late. So me and Ethan each have a few guys we're going to discuss here. And being that I am a nice guy, Ethan, that is what I'm known for on this channel. Is Jake is a stand-up guy, a nice guy. At least that's what I'd like to believe. I'm going to let you start off. Who is the first person? And we're talking late, right? We're talking like 14th round and later ADP. We're talking about guys that a lot of them will go undrafted. But if you find yourself in this position, these are some names to throw a dart on. Who's the first one you got?
First one I have here, we're going deep today. I got three really deep ones. I went even later than the 14th round. I'm going all the way to the 19th round. Wide receiver 75, Rondale Moore. Okay, so anyone who doesn't really do Dynasty may not have heard of Rondale Moore. Or maybe you heard that he's like 5'7". Either way, he's an absolute beast. Mm-hmm. Okay, one of the best college wide receivers that came out this year. The problem is he is 5'7". So him and Kyler Murray are going to be taking a look at each other, and they're going to be eye to eye. And I think that's going to create a little bit of a bond between them. Okay, but really the reason I like Rondale Moore is that there's not really a great wide receiver 2 option. I mean, you have AJ Green. He's a question mark. I know that you're an AJ Green guy, so I won't totally bash the guy. But somebody in the slot, Christian Kirk, he's got some guys, but he's never really done anything, okay? Rondale Moore could be an absolute target vacuum in the middle, underneath. And yeah, he's only 5'7", but he is a freak athlete, okay? He's wicked fast, wicked quick, and he's got amazing burst. So once he gets the ball in his hand, he's basically a satellite running back. And so those are the types of guys that if I'm going to take a flyer on a guy, I might as well take a flyer on one of probably the cheapest wide receiver 2s on his team that you can get this late 19th round. And I think Rondale Moore's just worth the ticket. It's worth a lottery ticket to get a guy that has that athletic profile that has potentially a lot of opportunity in an offense that's ascending.
Now, being a Cardinals fan, I love Rondale Moore. But let me just ask your opinion real quick, because one name you didn't mention was Andy Isabella. How do you think Rondale Moore differs from Andy Isabella? And are we trying to hoard the shortest people in the NFL? I'm starting to think that the Cardinals don't care about winning anymore. We're just going to try to lower our overall team height at this point.
Yes, and I love Andy Isabella. I loved him when he came out. I thought he was one of the better deep threats. But Rondale Moore isn't just a speed guy. Rondale Moore was the wide receiver 1 on his team, put his team on his back as a true freshman, beat Ohio State. The dude is just an all-around wide receiver. And so while Andy Isabella is one of, I think, the most underrated double move deep threats in the league, Rondale Moore can do that, but he can also win in the short and intermediate routes. He's a lot thicker than Andy Isabella was, even though they are the same, built the same way from a size standpoint. Rondale Moore has a much better BMI And so for me, I like those guys that are built like that. Yes, he is short, but he's built like a little bowling ball. And when you have guys like that, they tend to be able to create better than a guy that, is really fast, but isn't built the way that a Rondale Moore is. So I see where you can compare those two because they are very, very fast. But I don't think that they are going to be used the same way. And if that's the case, and Rondale Moore is what he was in college, a wide receiver one, I don't expect him to be the wide receiver one for the Cardinals because they have a guy named DeAndre Hopkins, but he could easily be a target vacuum, somebody that picks up 5 to 8 targets. And if something happens to an AJ Green or a Christian Kirk, we could see a guy that, potentially is second on the team in targets.
I mean, I think I stopped listening after you said you liked him thick or something like that. I don't know.
I like him thick.
That's right. I mean, I agree with you there. Rondale Moore is a different type of receiver than Isabella. So now I'm going to go on to somebody who I feel is just being utterly disrespected at this point. I mean, this is just utter disrespect. And it's warranted to an extent if you base it off of his past. I'm talking about Sam Darnold. So maybe you don't care about quarterback. Maybe you're like, listen, I'm not taking one early. I'm not taking one anywhere in the middle rounds. I'm going to wait on quarterback altogether. Sam Darnold is currently like quarterback 30 right now. I mean, the guy is just being ignored. And I get that he sucked in New York, but Adam Gase made him suck. Like, this is a completely different situation. Look at the cases of anybody that leaves Adam Gase for the most part. Kenyon Drake, Ryan Tannehill, there's just list after list. Damian Williams had a little bit of a run there after he left Miami. Devontae Parker. I mean, there's Jarvis Landry improved. I mean, there's all these things that happen after Adam Gase. Sam Darnold's going to have a great opportunity to go into an offense in Carolina with Joe Brady as an offensive coordinator. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater threw for 3,700 yards and didn't have, Christian McCaffrey last year. Now they drafted Terrace Marshall Jr. I think it's really going to unlock Sam Darnold to an extent. Now, do I think Sam Darnold is a top 10 quarterback in fantasy football? I'm not going that far. But it's a horrible defense in Carolina, and they're going to have to throw a lot to stay in ball games. And Sam Darnold is somebody who I believe is pretty sneaky here this year.
I actually thought about mentioning Sam Darnold, so I don't mind this. I think that offense is going to be set up well. He's got all the weapons that you want, and normally that's what we're praising quarterbacks. We want the quarterbacks to have all the weapons, but yet he seems to be slipping through the cracks. I like that.
All right, who's your next guy?
My next guy here is a running back, and I am one that while I am not a huge handcuff your starters guy, I do like to take a few running backs that I think are an injury away at the end of drafts. So this guy is currently the RB 69. Don't make any jokes in the comments.
Nice.
Sure you want to, but don't. 21st round, and that's Kenny Gainwell. He is the backup running backs for the Eagles. And the reason I like Kenny Gainwell is just that I think that he does a lot of the things that Miles Sanders does. And so I think he's a pretty close one-to-one replacement for Miles Sanders. Now, we know that Miles Sanders isn't the most reliable RB1 in the league. And so I think handcuffing, well, it's not really a handcuff because a handcuff to me is a guy that's going to compete for workload. I don't think Kenny Gainwell is necessarily going to do that right away, but I think he could replace Miles Sanders if an injury pops up. So I don't mind taking a lottery ticket on a Kenny Gainwell because, hey, preseason happens. He's the last pick in your draft. Miles Sanders goes down with an injury. You don't have to worry about spending all your fab on a guy like Kenny Gainwell, who's probably, if a Miles Sanders injury occurred, probably a guy that's going to be pretty sought after. We haven't seen him in a while. He took last season off because of COVID. He played for Memphis, and he put up just outrageous stats in Memphis. I mean, he ran for like 1,400 yards. He had 51 receptions in college, which is just like, that's unbelievable for a college running back. And so Kenny Gainwell is a guy that I think, he's got the athleticism. He's got the build. He can catch passes. These are all things that we want in a running back. And he could, and if Miles Sanders plays well, you just drop Kenny Gainwell. Nobody cares. But if he, stumbles to start the year or he gets hurt in the preseason, you've already got Kenny Gainwell sitting there on your bench and you can just plug him right in as an RB2, RB3 for your fantasy team. So That's just a guy that I think that, he seems to find his way on the end of my benches often, especially in redraft.
Yeah, love me some Kenny Gainwell. I mean, one thing I can say about him also is he's one of the new regime's guys, right? I mean, they drafted him. So, I mean, he's one of theirs. They have a lot of other running backs on that roster, but I mean, let's be realistic. Most of them are washed at this point. Miles Sanders, I would love to see get a heavy workload. If he could stay healthy, he could put up some big numbers. But you're right, he's similar there to Kenny Gainwell. I have another running back. He's in the 18th round. He's running back 58, and it's Darrell Williams. And a lot of people just forget about Darrell Williams, or they look at like you just did. Like you looked at me and you're like, Darrell Williams. But here's the thing. I am a big proponent of CEH this year. I think he's closer this year to what people expected last year. But we also saw that he struggles in certain areas of the game, and that's where Darrell Williams somewhat excels, right? Around the goal line, it would be one of those situations. Are we going to see CH go out there and get every touch? No, we're not. And he's going to, share this backfield in some form or fashion with somebody else. And they showed last year that Darrell Williams was kind of like next man up, even over Le'Veon Bell late in the season. You get that goal line work, the added touches in a high-powered offense. If they get any big leads, if they want to protect CEH late, maybe they run Darrell Williams a little bit more. There's just something there that if anything were to happen to CEH, is he going to be a locked and loaded running back one? No, probably not. But he's somebody who would be a serviceable, low-end running back two flex play if something were to happen to CEH. So he's just a name that I don't want people to just necessarily forget about, but don't draft him and go into your season thinking that you're going to get immediate production from him.
Yeah, Darrell Williams, now that you've said your piece about him, okay. When you first mentioned his name, I kind of got a bad taste in my mouth. It's like when you try a beer you've never tried before, and you're like, I don't really think I like this. And then you drink the whole thing, and you're like, that was a pretty enjoyable beer. Mm-hmm. That's Darrell Williams, okay? Yep. He is that guy. Mm-hmm. Because you're right, CH, while I also agree, is a great buy this year. If something were to happen to him, Darrell Williams is the next guy on an offense that's going to score a ton of touchdowns and going to be on the goal line a lot. So we love the touchdown upside. He does fill that gap as just kind of a battering ram. He's shown that he can do that in the past. So he's going to score touchdowns. And I just think that, once again, we're talking about dudes at the very end of your drafts. And so Darrell Williams, if you say, hey, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he blows up, drop Darrell Williams. Who cares? Clyde Edwards-Helaire gets hurt week 1, you're going to be glad that you stashed him on your bench because now you don't have to fight for him, and you're locked and loaded with a guy that's probably going to score double-digit touchdowns if something were to happen to CEH. So
and that's the thing, because after him, you have Darwin Thompson and you have Jerick McKinnon, neither of which, McKinnon can't stay healthy, and Darwin hasn't really been given an opportunity in a couple years. So Darrell Williams is I agree, the next man up that would get the bulk of the volume.
Yeah, I completely agree. And those are the guys that you're looking for. One injury away.
Yep. All right. Well, who's next? Who you got?
The last guy here is actually not an injury away, and he's a tight end. So bear with me here.
The football kind, I'm sure.
The expectations have been lowered because he's a tight end. Currently going as the tight end 33, 23rd round. And it's Mo Alley Cox. He plays for the Colts, and he is a big dude.
Big. Mo Cox, Mo problems, buddy.
Big dude. Okay. He is a problem in the red zone. And the reason I like him is that he has a new quarterback. He's got a quarterback in Carson Wentz that has shown in the past that he can support tight ends and tight end ones for that matter. Mo Alley Cox, while he does have some competition in Jack Doyle, I think showed last year that he's a little bit more valuable. He's kind of that sneaky huge dude where he's a little bit faster than you think he is. And then once he gets the ball, he's really hard to tackle, and he makes contested catches in the red zone. And when we're talking about tight ends for fantasy, that's really the difference between a tight end 1 and a tight end 2. Can they catch 6 to 8 touchdowns? That's it. That's all you're looking for. You're not expecting 10 guys to catch 1,000 yards, or 100 catches. Okay. You just want that dude at the end that you're plugging him in on your bye week, maybe for your starter, you hope he gets a touchdown. And he's got one of the best chances because he's got a quarterback that likes to throw to the tight end, and he's huge. So Mo Alley Cox, go get Mo Alley Cat Cox.
Mo Cox, Mo problems. I mean, you're right. I think the tie with Carson Wentz and the usage of tight ends and then being reunited with Frank Reich there in Indianapolis. I mean, you talked about Jack motherfucking Doyle, very, very loved by the show. But yeah, he can't stay healthy. What about Paris Campbell? He can't stay healthy. T.Y. Hilton is always banged up. He's a shell of his older self. It's just, there's opportunities right there, and you hit it. It's the touchdowns. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. This dude may only get 500 yards, 450 yards on the season, but he could have 10 touchdowns. And that's tight end one numbers, even though it's ugly. It is what it is. And he has that ability. Somebody who's converting from basketball to football, basically still learning the position, is super athletic, super huge. Mo Cox, Mo problems, end of drafts. I don't hate that whatsoever.
And I forgot to mention, we always talk about tight ends taking time to develop in the NFL, and then we never attack those tight ends that have taken time to develop in the NFL, like your Gerald Everett's of the world, your Mo Alley Cox. These guys are 2, 3, 4 years into their career. Now's the time. You keep saying, everyone says, get the tight ends after their first contract. And then we see this where they're going as tight end 33. Like, he's shown you something. Give him a chance. This could be the breakout. This is what tight ends do. So go draft them. And
then what the worst case scenario? You just drop him. He doesn't do anything, you drop him. And you're not out anything. There's no risk involved. Best case scenario, dude goes out there, he's an absolute monster, and you are sitting pretty at the tight end position. Last guy I have is one who I had to refresh my ADP because I didn't expect him to be this low still. But we just refreshed it. And Russell Gage, wide receiver of the Atlanta Falcons, is still sitting in the 15th round as wide receiver 62. Now, this is a guy who was pretty heavily involved in 2020. He had 109 targets for 72 receptions, 786 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And now Julio Jones is not in the picture. The running game, Mike Davis. It is what it is. It's not exactly going to eat up all the volume in this offense. And then you have Kyle Pitts. Talking about tight ends who struggle as a rookie, a lot of people are saying that Pitts may be the exception to that. And I'm not saying he's not. He very easily could be peppered with so many targets this year that he could have an Evan Ingram effect in his rookie year where there wasn't a whole lot of other options, so he just was force-fed the ball. I can see that happening to Pitts this year. But there's got to be somebody else in this offense. And Russell Gage has proven that he can be a decent wide receiver 2. He's not a wide receiver 1. He probably never will be. But as a number 2 behind Calvin Ridley, all the defensive attention going that way towards Ridley and Kyle Pitts, we can see single coverage all over the place for Russell Gage, and he proved to us in 2020 he could win at that. So at the end of drafts in the 15th round, Russell Gage, I'll take a dart throw on him.
Why not? This is, again, we're looking for guys that have opportunity right away and could potentially be an injury away from amazing opportunity. Yes, I love Kyle Pitts. Do I expect him to be Julio Jones? No, he's not going to command that type of workload, which means those targets are going to go somewhere. Maybe it's Hayden Hurst, but it's probably going to be Calvin Ridley and Russell Gage. So why wouldn't you want the wide receiver 2? Assuming we're calling Kyle Pitts a tight end still, which I don't know if we always will.
Right.
I just think that it just makes sense. And if something were to happen to Calvin Ridley, Russell Gage is like that guy's replacement. So you have the backup to Calvin Ridley, who also serves as essentially the wide receiver 2 if Kyle Pitts is a full-time tight end. We'll see how that works out. But you get it twice. I love that. I love that. That's great.
I expect by the time we get into mid-August, this has to rise. It has to. But he's definitely a name that I'm going to highlight and pay attention to during my fantasy football drafts, because if he's this late, that's the guy to go get late in your drafts if you're looking for some wide receiver depth. But like we said, these are some late round lottery tickets. These are some guys that we're not saying are going to go set the world on fire. They're going to be guys that you take that stab on late and you're hoping that they hit. If they don't, there's no risk involved. That's what it's all about, is trying to find those guys, because if you can, the people who find those gems late are the ones that aren't scrounging the waiver wire and dumping fab budget 3 weeks into a season trying to fill holes in their roster already. Find the guys in the draft, then you don't have to worry about it. So that's what these guys are all about today. If you're looking for a draft guide, if you say, hey, listen, this is just too much information, I can't remember all of this, don't worry. We have you covered. TheFantasyHeadliners.com. Right now, you can get our draft guide for $19.99. Over 600 virtual pages of all things fantasy football, including the Doc's injury reports are in there, giving you some risk ratings, and that's valuable information that you can't go without when you head into your fantasy football draft. So, Ethan, I appreciate you taking time today after a long vacation. Ethan was gone for like 16 months, it felt like. He drove like 8,000 miles across the country, but he's back, he's healthy, he's looking great, and he's ready to go for the 2021 fantasy football season. So for myself and the doctor, hopefully you all have a great rest of your day, a great week, and we'll talk to you later.